I'm excited to bring you on. I know that Dr. Shilpa is probably finishing up with a patient or two, and it is an exciting time. I think there's many ways to frame the chaos that we live in this world today. And one of the ways is of uncertainty, but I see this as inspiration, and some of the volatility can be exactly what we need to recreate an innovative way of delivering medical care. And so this is catching fire. A lot of people are inspired. The group is growing, and so we have many eyes on you today. And it's really refreshing to see the journeys that you both have brought up into this moment, which I definitely want to talk about. And while we're waiting for Dr. Shilpa, thank you again, Phil, CEO, and Adam, President of Forum Health. And Forum Health is just a wonderful asset to the innovation in healthcare. I think it was founded in 2019, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And you not only include, the network of integrative and functional practitioners, but also a nutraceutical division and tech support, the EMR, Power to Practice, which is great. It's like an all-in-one wonderful opportunity. So and so I think we're still waiting for Shilpa, but Adam, did you want to say a little bit more about your role in Forum Health?
It's just an exciting time for Forum, as we are continuing to grow. We have 17 locations now. We're expanding quickly. We should be to 25 or 30. But the part that is just so intriguing for me is really just bringing all these providers together in an area that can collaborate and exchange ideas. And kind of true to our name, people are like, hey, where did Forum come from? And it's really about everyone having a seat at the table. And that's our providers, but it's also surrounding ourselves with, the business team as well, to have everybody bring in their strengths so that we can all succeed, which is really exciting. And one thing I'll mention is we're just getting started is really that technology piece is really so critical to us, because as we grow and as being a part of the integrative functional medicine space, data has been something we've all wanted more of. And all these providers are across the country have all these great stories of, their N of ones at their location. And we can now aggregate data and start really showing the greater world how this medicine is better for patients overall. So we actually are getting our first IRB for some research on one of our programs that we offer. That's incredibly exciting. And it takes into consideration patients from all of our practices across the country, which is really great.
That's phenomenal, especially in this day and age when so many things in medicine are under fire, not just in conventional medicine, but in integrative and holistic medicine. So having a little bit of metrics, some IRB, some backing of evidence-based practices, which is inundated in a lot of our lectures and training through IFM and A4M. That's definitely evidence-based. But when you're venturing out into this new and innovative way of delivering healthcare in an integrative way, it's helpful to have something like Forum Health that is that house that can provide the basis and the foundation to move forward. And dare I say, convince our conventional colleagues that, we are all as a team having a seat at the table. I think that's brilliant, a great metaphor.
Yeah, and Lara, over time, it's been so interesting because this space of root cause illness has been around a long, long time, but so many doctors have practiced as just one-offs, right? They're an N of one, and they were a single practice. And in today's world of evidence-based medicine, the evidence of a single patient hasn't had a lot of viability and accountability. But if we as an organization with let's say 20 practices today and 100 practices in the future, and even our EMR software program with 500 practices today and 1,000 practitioners can start capturing data that is actionable, we can become one of the quickest and lowest cost forms of proof. As we move forward right now, particularly with COVID and the virus and the need to have quick reactionary information that is still accurate and science-based, Forum can be that. We talked today to a group that's looking at an IRB, and they're looking for 5 practice sites to be beta test sites for some new therapies. And there's an IRB in place already, and there's a program in place, and they're going to be working with hospitals, but they also want to be working in the community with community practitioners. So we see Forum's role to bring validity and science to the small practices that are doing great work, just like you've done your whole career. But it's hard for you to pound on the table as one person and get anybody to listen. But if I can find 20 people and write a white paper about it, then we can get people to listen.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely so important and impactful in the voice. It's the voice in a choir of many, like you said, and of one. And there are these stories and these anecdotes, and dare I say, it's what Forum Health is trying to do, is be the encyclopedia. You're collecting
Yes.
all the volumes of information that have been going on for ages. And as a trained osteopath, holistic philosophy is ingrained in osteopathic medicine. This is nothing new. But when we talk about these one-off case studies, it helps to have this support of somebody curating this information so that we can help patients seek a provider that can help them in ways others maybe have missed. When you started Forum Health, where did you actually start it? Like which state?
Well, it's interesting, Lara. The roots of Forum Health started with a company back in the day called Ageology, which really is the study of aging, around how do we create a way to take care of patients as we age in a better, more efficacious manner. And we started out with an EMR software program because, again, it all relied on the idea of data. So back in 2013 and 2014, we created Power to Practice, which was an EMR data management program. And like everybody trying to create a new type of software for integrative functional medicine where it never existed before, we struggled quite a while at first. We finally brought Adam on board in around 2015. And Adam was able to help us stabilize and launch a minimum viable product, which now today, again, we've got about 11 or 1,200 practitioners in 500 locations. But the idea behind the EMR was, yes, to make, a functional medicine EMR that was easier for practices to use, but more than anything, it was to be able to capture the data and create validity around it. And that's where the roots were created back in 2013, 14. And then in 2019, we made the decision to really bring the practices together. We thought, well, we've got the technology, and we also had a nutraceutical company at the time. We had the technology, we had the resources. What we really needed to be able to do then was to be able to create patient-specific algorithms and management programs to get our doctors together in an organization that could move more symbiotically. And that's what the genesis of Forum Health was, to create now a program where we could really affect patient care at the patient level, as opposed to just be a software provider.
That's lovely, Phil. And it's sort of like it feels like a doctor's lounge, which is a bygone thing in most hospitals. Yeah. I wanted to welcome Dr. Shilpa Saxena. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here.
Hi, thank you so much. And I apologize for my late entrance. Sometimes you just got to be fashionable.
Yes, absolutely. Right? It's the grand, we got all the housekeeping out of the way, and okay. So before I introduce Dr. Shilpa, as a fangirl of you from day one of my functional medicine journey, which is 2016, if you hear her lecture, it is a treat because it's entertaining, it's academic, it's infused with her genuine personality, and her authenticity shines through. So huge fan of yours and all your work. And she's done a lot. Dr. Shilpa is CEO for her own Sevamed. Did I say that right? Sevamed Institute? Sevamed. And she is one of the OGs, the originals of a group-based lifestyle model. So you'll see her in the group visit toolkits. You'll hear her as she founded the Center for Wellness. She is a board-certified family physician, has 15 years of experience in the integrative platform. She's a faculty at the Institute for Functional Medicine, as well as a fellow of the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine. And so she is just filled with lots of experience. And I'm so honored that you took a little bit of your day out so you can educate. We have a lot of eyes on this. I like to coin myself as the chief creativity catalyst. So I help people redesign their medical careers in many different ways. So we have people listening who are just out of residency and curious. And we have people all the way that are looking towards retirement options, and all in between of painting this landscape and this masterpiece of medicine in their own unique way. So thank you for your contribution. And before we get into it, what made you decide to join Forum Health?
Oh my goodness, so many different reasons. First of all, thank you so much for your kind words, and thank you for what you're doing, because we surely need that counterbalance in our industry, in our minds, and our hearts. So what made me join Forum Health? Well, first of all, it was the people. I had a pre-existing relationship with Adam, and I just knew that it was built on integrity, just knowing him, who he is. And listen, any one of us who's been in this field long enough starts to realize this should be available for more people. It just seems like a hidden treasure that needs to be available for the masses. So many of us, are working in our own little islands trying to transform healthcare, and we do as we will. We sometimes can't push the needle by ourselves. And, listen, the fact that I believe in group is no different than why I believe in group for Forum Health. I think it will take a village to not just change a patient's life, but it will take a village to transform healthcare. So I joined because what I was missing in my ability to transform healthcare was this well-rounded team, people who had a multitude of skills that will come together, not only to support the providers, but to support the staff, to support the cause, to support the IT, the math, the business, like what it takes to actually change something. So I was just excited to work with inspired people.
Yes, absolutely. Game changing, inspired, and innovative. I mean, it's very well rounded. Like you said, it's taking all of the collective and the synergy and helping everybody combine their best skills and offloading and unburdening some of the, like you said, math. Yeah, we don't want to do math in our practice. Not at all. Not at all.
I do, but I just don't like business math. Sometimes that gets to be a bit ugly. Spreadsheets, Excel is the bad 5-letter word for me.
No, I agree. I agree. So what would you say, Dr. Shilpa, what would you say is the greatest challenges facing a solo owner or founder of their own medical practice?
When you take on the healthcare industry by yourself, number one, if you're a conventional physician, at least you have some general guidelines as to what are the boundaries that you're supposed to live in. And then, you can follow others because most people are following the same Medicare guidelines and this and that. If you decide to go solo in functional and integrative medicine, well, then you have a new set of challenges to have to keep up with. And it's not just on the operational front, it's the legal front, it's the financial front, in addition to what you already feel on the clinical front, kind of pushing the edge of what you practice and being smart and savvy about giving out good care, but not putting yourself in a place where you could be taken down, if you will, for just forgetting to cross a T or dot an I. And I do think that in the end, that weighs heavy on the hearts of practitioners to constantly be in this hypervigilant mode of, did I forget something? Did I, do something that I shouldn't have, with all the right intentions? And still the burnout will occur. The other thing is that many of us have great ideas, but we don't have the operational understanding or the financial understanding, nor do we sometimes have that leadership ability to rally a team, know how to hire and fire. And that kind of stuff really can slow down a solo practitioner from achieving their results. So I think that's the burnout you get from trying to do it alone. I mean, this is the story of humanity, right?
Right. And burnout can be seen in so many different areas of medicine, conventional, functional, integrative. Yeah. I mean, burnout is really just those three things. It's depersonalization, low perceived achievement, and emotional exhaustion. So what you do feels like it doesn't matter anymore and you're exhausted. And who hasn't felt burnt out as a parent or in their marriage at times, that seeps everywhere. But what I love is, while we're waiting for the world to change, which is going to be slow, you are providing a way that we can help prevent burnout in the integrative platform. And as a solo doctor myself, I love the creativity that comes with it. But you're right, not everybody has that energy to want to take it all on. So outsourcing is number one. First thing I say to my mentees, like, make sure you're getting a good VA, that you're able to find staff that you can offload, because you shouldn't do it alone. And even that, having leaders around you in Forum Health that can help get their experience behind. If somebody's already tried to recreate the wheel, why have you do it again? Would you say, what would be like an exit strategy if they're on the other end of the spectrum and they're looking towards retiring or maybe selling their practice? How does Forum Health work in that realm?
That's a great question. I'm going to actually bounce that over to the person who manages that more so, right? So Adam, would that be something that you think you want to answer, since that's kind of what you're counseling a lot of our providers on?
Absolutely. And so I think, for providers, they've built this practice and now they're thinking about what about an exit? In most providers, the first thing they're thinking about is they're responsible for their patients. How do I make sure my patients are taken care of? And I think it's, just really about the providers getting past that. And then it comes to creating legacy. They built this practice and they want it to go on. They want functional medicine to go on and continue in delivering this great care. So at Forum, we believe in kind of our clinical, financial, operational model. And we always have to look at all three of those, starting with clinical, giving good clinical care, but we always have to look at financial and operational. So, as you think about that and your exit, how does your practice function, or how can you create your practice so essentially it doesn't need you anymore? So it's one, finding a replacement provider that you can either train, but that understands how you approach medicine and how you approach your patients. And then two, how is the practice being managed? Do you have a strong office manager that really is handling the end-to-end office things like we talked about, legal and accounting and all those other things? And then the last one I would say is, are you creating non-provider revenue, whether it's through services, whether it's through devices, or all the different things you do? And then to bring that all together is, do you understand financially where you're at with your practice? So I encourage providers to make sure, you hear profit and loss statements and things like that, and some people start going, oh my gosh, what is this? But sit down with your accountant once a quarter and understand where your revenue is coming from, where your expenses are, because those three things are really going to help you position your practice for not only success, but then a future exit.
I think that's great advice. Yes, go ahead, Phil.
Sorry, let me just share one more little bit about that too, because we found one of the things that's really exciting for us as we grow and build more momentum as a company, it's becoming easier for us to bring these kind of capabilities to the practices we buy. I think we all know in this industry that there aren't enough integrative functional medicine doctors out there, and most of them that are out there do have their own practices. There aren't enough mid-levels at all yet. We don't have enough nurse practitioners. We don't have enough PAs out there right now that are really in the space. And so when we first formed Forum Health, and we had a number of practices that we bought that did want to, a number of our practices want to work 5 to 10 years, but some of them do want to retire in 6 to 18 months. And it was a little hard for us to find people at first, but as we built some momentum at Forum, and we built a reputation of delivering that same great care that the doctor did in a community, but now being able to bring more resources to remove the non-clinical burden, we're actually finding it a lot easier. An individual doctor in a small town has a very hard time finding another doctor that wants to come in. But if Forum Health comes into the practice and can take all the non-clinical burden off, then a practitioner who doesn't want the challenges, who wants to practice great medicine, but doesn't want the challenges of the business, now can come in. So we actually double or triple the amount of available people to come our way. We're getting ready to put a press release out. That's 5 more of our practices. We're bringing in nurse practitioners right now that we're all announcing at the same time. And a year ago, they were harder for us to find. So we're really excited about being able to build this neural network of people that want to join more than just the opportunity to give care to people. They want to join the opportunity to be part of a network that can deliver great care across the country.
That's helpful, Phil. Dr. Shilpa, what made you think of joining Forum Health? As far as some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time from some of our practitioners were asking things like, that sounds like a franchise, and all I think of is McDonald's. Like, what's going to happen to my unique way? So walk me through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I can't. First of all, I just want to validate everybody's concern. That's one of the most common questions that we have, because most of us, when we think of corporate medicine, we assume like what hospital gobbled you up and now is like, this is how we do it the hospital way. And now you will see 18 to 24 patients. And this is the image that comes to their mind when they think corporate. Now, that's just not in alignment with what Forum Health believes, because we are not a conventional corporate mechanism. We are a functional integrative, if you will, corporate mechanism. So functional and integrative medicine just very much glorifies diversity, and it glorifies personalized medicine. So what we do, most of the times I'm talking to providers, I'm explaining like, no, you have magic already. You already know what your people want. You have already found things that work. What we'd like to do is build upon that. We do not want you to go away. We want you to continue to partner with us. So number one, this isn't like a takeover, hostile or otherwise. It is a partnership. And so when people get that, no, we need you, we want your leadership, we want you to guide us, You know where you live, you know what your people
Mhm.
want. We just want to be able to give you more ideas and more resources and partner. So in fact, one of the things that I've explained to many people is like, I feel very much in control, if you will. I still feel like I'm the medical director. It feels like a really typical day pre-form to me. The only difference is that when something happens, I have, look how old I am. I was about to say Rolodex. Okay.
I hear you.
I was like, I just, but
Yeah.
we have an internal, messaging platform. And I'm like, who do I need? And then I go, okay, I need HR. Okay, this is my person. Da, da, da. Hey, can you help me with this? And then I go, thank you. And I go back to seeing my patients.
Yeah.
And it, magically being managed. So what's beautiful is if I didn't change the wording to Forum Health Tampa, people would not know that things were different. The only thing that's happening behind the scenes is that I have just a huge village and team of resources. And then what we do at Forum Health is not only do we partner with the provider to find out, hey, what do you know could make a difference here? What could we build upon? But then Forum will give other ideas to the provider like, hey, what about this? Seems like hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical HRT would be a good thing. Would that be something you're interested in? And the provider will say, absolutely not. I am full with my patients. And then Forum would say, great. Would you be okay with us bringing on a new provider to be able to add more services? And then the provider gets to speak to, yeah, that would be great. I just don't want to learn it, but I'm happy. So you see how it's not like you will flip burgers this way. Even if you brought in hormone replacement therapy across our spectrum, we have people from like IFM who I'll say are more conservative with their hormone replacement therapy model. Then we have people who are definitely towards the, if you will, anti-aging, regenerative and use hormones. But in no way does Forum come in and tell you how to practice medicine. No,
That's awesome.
not
That's
at all. No, and that's really important because most people in functional and integrative medicine are already bucking the system.
And they've worked hard to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
They're strong. So why would we create a business model to try to corral those hugely creative pioneering spirits? No, we want to partner with them.
That's amazing. And that's so needed because what you're servicing is like a spectrum, right? Some people are very happy doing their own thing in their own practice, and that's fine. I might consider myself one of them. I like the creativity. I like to be able to do that. But then there's a lot of people that just are ready to say, okay, well, I still want to do what I'm doing, but I would like some extra support,
Yeah.
Laura, let me just share one more little bit about that, because this was really one of the important fundamental decisions we made early on. Do we come vanilla and, make all of our practices look the same, or do we embrace the uniqueness of each practice? And again, I love vanilla, but it's not my favorite flavor, right? And some people don't like it at all. And so why should we try and create vanilla across the entire company, especially when, as Shilpa said, and as you have said, we are finding some of the most creative minds in medicine, and they got where they're at because they seceded from the traditional union because they were too creative to be put in a box. And so when I think a little bit about the idea of if we as a corporation had made the decision to create, common efficiencies across the entire company in every way, there are benefits to that financially, but there are significant downsides and risks too, because what happens if you do that, you lose a lot of the magic. And we've talked a lot in the early days of this, that this is medicine is both art and science. And the science of medicine can be done in a more systematic way, but the art of medicine needs to be done outside of the box. And it needs to allow physicians to be able to kind of live in the world they want to live in. And so we've worked really hard to make sure that that's the part that we embrace. And yes, we'll bring some common elements. Like Shilpa said, we can bring in practitioners. And if we've got a doctor doing environmental medicine, we may add some services and capabilities that wasn't on his main list, but he thinks will complement his practice. But we won't push his practice into a manner in a way that he isn't interested in practicing medicine. And we think while that creates a few, challenges for us, because we've got to be more efficient about how we practice different modalities, the upside of that is tremendous for us. And we are all about that model as opposed to the vanilla model.
Yeah, I think that,
one more thing, if you don't mind, is how many times it's interesting. A lot of providers, they're so passionate about what they want to do. They go to a conference, they get excited, and then they get back to their practice on Monday and they have to start seeing patients. They've got to start dealing with office problems. And oftentimes they can't even do some of the things that they are really passionate about or really interested in. And so one of the things that's been really fun for me is a provider goes to one of these conferences or an acquisition happens and they're like, I always wanted to do this modality. I just never had the time and couldn't figure it out. And all of a sudden there, again, we look at clinical, financial, operationally, but we can now take that forward, surround them with all the tools they need to make that happen, hire the right people if needed, bring in the right equipment if needed, and then make the program and really think about the end to end, because it's not just that, it's how do you price it? How do you market it? All the different pieces that need to come together. But now what it's done is it's allowed the provider to do what they're passionate about and bring in some of the things that they didn't have time to do just because of the normal day-to-day things that they have to do with seeing patients and managing a practice.
Yeah, that is brilliant. That's something that I talk about a lot with the mentorship people that I'm helping is we love learning. Doctors are we just love, we're sponges. We love it. And when there's new things to think about, new ways to practice, the worst thing to do is to come home from a conference and not put that information to good use. And so I've always been somebody, to encourage my mentees to make it into your next group visit, in open office hours, whatever you want to call it. Take that information you just learned while it's fresh on your mind, talk about it with your patient members, record it. So it's something you can replay later. And, it's so useful because the more you see one, do one, teach one in such a quick, recession, it actually will help you retain. And imagine having the support of Forum Health to be able to say, hey, keep seeing your patients, we'll set up stuff on the back end. But I think it's important to, like you said, disconnect our profitability from the one-on-one patient visit. It's just not going to work. We don't have enough doctors. We aren't going to be able to help everybody. So doing group models or tutorials or videos or courses are some of the ways. What other ways do you consider having more value for your patient population?
Well,
You want to start?
what's that? Adam, did you
want to start?
Yeah, of course. I always have something to say. It's like, you just have to stop me. Okay. So thank you so much for always talking about creative ways to leverage your time, because that is one of the ways that we're going to burn out. So let me give a beautiful example of how this network works, because you're giving great examples about group and using resources. We have health coaches that we leverage through two main programs. We have a gut detox program, and then we have a neurotransmitter restoration program. And what we've been able to do is these things that work in a very systematized way can be delegated to a health coach who will then basically handhold your patient so that you can then work on something that really does require your one-on-one care. That's one of the ways that we've found time for ourselves, but feel very safe and secure knowing that a well-trained health coach, trained in the protocol, trained to know when it's not her scope of practice, should be in connection with you. So we've started creating these very commonly used protocols and having health coaches administer. And what that also does is it drops the price of the cost of these goods and services so that we make these things more available to the masses. Now, the other thing that I think is huge, and this is a living example of it, when I first started Forum Health, we did surveys on like, okay, what do you think? What services should we put across the network? And one of our providers, I'll just call one side of the bell curve. He's like on that leading edge, like vigilante cowboy, like ready to try on new things. I would say I'm in the middle, like I'm a pioneer, but I'm like, give me the evidence. Let me just make sure everybody else does it a little bit before I go do it. So in that conversation, we were talking about ketamine for treatment-resistant depression and addiction. And, that sounded like a little too much for what I thought I could handle in our lobby. Like I just didn't get the world of it. And then lo and behold, one day, an 18-year-old boy who is the son of a mom that I sit next to on the soccer bench comes to see me for depression and suicidality. And I'm thinking, Andrew Peterson told me about ketamine. I'm like, now I gotta do this. I would never have taken that on, but because I had, if you will, and I'm going to use my like cultural speak, like I had a brother in this. I called Andrew and I'm like, listen, can you please tell me about this? Like, how crazy is it? What do I have to do? And then he basically gave me the lowdown in a 30-minute conversation, enough for me to feel empowered to want to take this on. I spoke to the business team. I'm like, listen, I think I can do this and I'd like to make a difference for this young man, but also he's just a one in this
Mhm.
community. So now we are doing ketamine. And I tell you, Adam is probably super surprised that Shilpa Saxena is doing ketamine in her practice. That's just a way that
Yes,
the village comes together.
it
and
is. It's the doctor's
support.
lounge again. It really is.
Yes.
It's where the magic happens of medicine. And I think from the patient standpoint, they don't know that this magic happens all the time from curbside consults or, friends that you graduated from medical school with, and you just call them up real quick because they're a rheumatologist and you had a weird thing happen on a patient. And all this magic happens, but in this diversified, very isolated, now we're scared to say anything, in social media. And so you get these like silos of N of one where these doctors are just sort of by themselves. And I think that's great that now you're doing ketamine, and it's all because you were able to go to the lounge and ask.
That's right. And be empowered. It's not just the knowledge, as you probably know, a lot of people know a lot of stuff, but they don't do it.
Right.
So it was
the
his
application.
support in
Yeah.
the doing that actually got this young man in college and functional.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. And that is a great start to understanding how Forum Health can fit. Now, we have, again, people are going to contact you. I have all of your contact information. What would be a litmus test for a provider that might not be a good fit for Forum Health, if there is any?
I think I'm going to defer to Adam on this one because he heads kind of that initiative with Forum Health. I'm happy to chime in after Adam kind of does the official filter test.
So I think maybe I'll answer it a little bit differently. I think there's several options of joining, right? If there's a practice that you want to become part of Forum, most of our practices are expanding where they are adding additional providers. So there's kind of two entry points. But for the people like who would get disqualified, it's hard to say. Do you not want to collaborate with other providers? Do you not want to grow your practice? Do you not want to be a part of something bigger? It sounds like those are the reasons you wouldn't want to join, that you have no interest in being a part of those things. And so those would be the things I'd say, that's why you don't want to join, because all the other reasons would be to join and have all those resources available.
That's good to know. I do have some practitioners telling me, oh, but I've been in a hospital when they've been taken over, and I know those transitions are hard. I would assume Forum Health helps with all of those transitions, like the actual behind the scenes changing and all of that.
I think that's the one thing that everybody kind of relates to, because every
PTSD
doctor that I know of knows a provider that has joined a healthcare system and has been miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I'll even talk about the investment world. A lot of hospital systems have tried to buy functional practices, force them into conventional care, and they break them. And that's a common thread. And so I think the piece that's critical is we all have that mindset, like, I'm going to join this big company that's going to force all this change. And as Phil and Shilpa both said, our goal is not to come in and, it's first do no harm. How do we partner and grow the practice? How do we work together and get some of these other modalities in your practice? How can we take accounting so you don't even have to think about it? Legal, so you don't even have to think about, oh, wait, do I need my malpractice renewed? And I got to fill out all these forms. Why don't I have somebody else do all that and keep track of all of it? So again, providers can do what they love most, which is seeing the patients.
And if I could just kind of use, I'm from New York. I'm the firstborn child of immigrants. So I have like a healthy dose of skepticism, like built in my genetics and in my, epigenetics. So I look at things very logically. So if you just look at it this way, why would an entity that is about expanding functional medicine come in and gobble you up and take away your ability to practice functional medicine? See, the reason why a hospital can come in, if you will, and gobble you up, and then if they don't like you, you leave, is because there's another one of you right around the corner to replace you. That we know that doesn't exist. We know that in the community that you're practicing, you are the magic. You are not replaceable easily. So, just thinking from a business perspective, why would any sound business practice of ours be to come in and make you upset where you would leave or not provide good care? Because we know you're not replaceable. You are the magic. So logically speaking, we don't have that bandwidth to just, oh, that's okay. You leave. We have another person who will come fill you in. We don't. We want you. So,
Right.
I mean, I get the fear, but we're looking at a totally different model. And then here's the other thing. We have medical executives that have to live the model that the business team will sometimes propose. So we go through it. And if it doesn't work for us, if they said to us, you've got to see 12 patients a day, which by the way, is not the truth. We would say no, because we would push back and say, this is not going to work for the network. So we also have a group of medical executives that are sifting through ideas that the business team might have about what we could do to grow. And then we will sometimes be the beta test before it goes out if we think there's possibility. But as medical executives, we actually still see patients. So we're going to protect our people, if you will, not that we have to, but I just want you to know it's not like just a bunch of bureaucrats who then get to put rules down on providers and they don't have to live and die by them.
That's amazing, because
Right.
that doesn't happen. Let me just tell you, most hospital admins, there's very retired doctors that are kind of a distance away from clinical practice. So that's really empowering.
And Lara, let me just share one more thing about that, because there was a little bit of a learning curve. We always wanted to create this neural network, and we always wanted to create this group of, of common thoughts where practices want to pull and grow together. But very quickly, early on, we realized that we didn't want the physicians in our organization to feel like employees. And that's what happens almost always when they get acquired by a physician's, roll-up group or a hospital system. They suddenly feel like their employees are not empowered to be the leader of their practice. We very quickly found that if we created that kind of attitude, we hurt the potential growth of their practice. These are creative men and women and physicians and practitioners and nurses in our organization, and we have to empower that creativity, and we had to give them the ability. So it was really early on, one of the first things that we heard from people is, sounds great, sounds too good to be true. I'm not willing to give up my autonomy as a physician to do it. And so we've asked them, talk to Shilpa, talk to our other leadership, talk to some of the people that we bought 2 years ago, talk to some of the people we bought 2 months ago, and get comfortable with that idea. And, once we realized the importance of that, we have spent a significant amount of time. Adam, maybe you can talk just for a minute about some of the tenets of care that we've kind of created here, so we can get our physicians all pulling together, like his comment about everyone having a seat at the table. We philosophically believed in a lot of things, but we didn't really promote them in a way that the doctors understood them. And we've been doing a lot of that in the last 6 months. Adam, you want to talk about those tenets?
Yeah, I think you're referencing like GDRX and BrainRx.
Well, no, but everybody having a seat at the table, and how we try and pull our physicians together and align them for the growth of the company.
Gotcha. Yeah. So part of the forum is, creating that space. You've used the word lounge quite a few times, and I love that word. And I might have to steal it from you if it's okay. But we have a monthly roundtable where all of our providers come together for a couple hours, and sometimes it's case review. Sometimes we bring in a guest speaker to talk about different things. We have a online communication tool that people can just go in, and maybe they have a tough patient they want to ask questions about, or they saw something new, or it just goes all over the place. And any of our providers are welcome to come in, ask questions, comment on things. And then we're starting, and due to COVID, but we're having our first in-person event to really cultivate this group of like-minded providers that can leverage, because each provider comes from, some type of conventional medicine, I would say. So, we have an ENT that now practices environmental medicine, and we might have an OBGYN that now practices more, bioidentical hormones, and a family practice doctor. And it's taking all these experts and sharing those ideas. And I think, one of the things Shilpa said, and I'll just reiterate, is at the medical executive side is really having good provider representation. And so, Shilpa being our, chief medical officer, Andrew Peterson being our chief of staff, Pam Smith being our chief education officer, making sure that we do surround ourselves with providers to help also, it's working together, it's partnership, even at the executive team, to say, hey, they may have a good idea, but we can't figure out how to make it work financially and operationally. We all need to come together to make it work.
That's lovely. I love the support too with clinical. I mean, there's a lot of that, the transition from conventional to functional integrative. And so having that extra clinical support in your monthly meetings and, some of these abilities to just call up your colleague again and say, hey, I'd like to run something by you. I think that's wonderful because unfortunately, in a lot of these other spaces on the internet, Facebook, there's some great private groups that doctors talk freely, but it's not really freely, as we know. There's always eyes. So this is a great way to continue your education and get that support you need in growing your practice.
And I think providers sometimes are afraid to share their secrets, that like their trade secrets. And so this also creates that environment that like, let's all share ideas so we can all win together.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts, Dr. Shilpa, on how you've enjoyed any subtle differences since joining Forum Health? What has it freed you up to do differently?
Many of us went into healthcare because we were trying to be fulfilled, whether it's personally, professionally, academically, intellectually, spiritually. There's some sort of fulfillment that we were seeking. I don't think anybody chooses to go through what we go through unless there's something important on the backside of it, right? So I don't know if I was naive or what, but I actually thought I was going to be healing people on the back end of my training, right? And very quickly realized I actually jokingly called myself a legalized drug dealer. Like, I'm just, and those drugs make a difference, but it just wasn't the fulfillment that I thought I had signed up for. And so found it functional and integrative medicine, and I loved it, but there was a price I was paying for being on the edge of society. And I definitely had like some sort of hypervigilance about like following the rules and
yes.
And so even though I was getting great fulfillment being in the room with the patients, I was burning out in a different way. And I also was feeling like I was walking like in quicksand, making progress on the movement. And so when I joined Forum Health, it's as though the quicksand became water. Do you know what I mean? Like water is still a little dense, but it's not quicksand. And now I feel like I'm higher up. Like I'm not like neck deep in the water, like I'm knee deep. But I love that there's like a whole bunch of other people knee deep with me. And sometimes you just need someone to pull you forward in the water. And I don't know about you, but there's just something so beautiful about a group of people working together for a higher ideal.
Yes.
It's the fulfillment that I sought in the beginning. And listen, I don't know if we're going to transform healthcare in the next 5 years, but I just wake up every day feeling like it could happen, which I did not have that feeling for the 20 years prior.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're right. I think as humans, everybody in healthcare has a purpose, an individual passion, but it's not until we make it a global mission in some way that anchors that meaning making into something greater than ourselves.
Yes.
And a lot of us have grit. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So that whole model of burnout is because we're not gritty enough. There's not enough resiliency. It's just false. We're proving that over and over. It's not. It's the model is just not healthy. It's toxic. It's codependent. I mean, I would dare say that conventional medicine doesn't empower patients. It makes a codependency type of behavioral pattern where physicians are fixing. And like you said, we don't fix. We're a guide. That's how we heal. But because of this toxic rotting system, a lot of us are escaping and saying, okay, that doesn't feel right, but let me find what feels better. And landing on this integrative functional platform. And like you said, it's wonderful, but can be kind of a quicksand where you can drown. And this is a great way to stay buoyant.
Lara, there's a quote that I heard a couple of years back when we were doing some work in Flint. It was really more around the philanthropic side when we were trying to take a city that had been beaten up by the auto crisis, then beaten up by the water crisis, then layered COVID on top of like the rest of the world, about how, the world just kind of wants to pull you down. And your quicksand analogy makes me think about it, Shilpa, but it's the saying is the gravitational pull of the status quo. right? The status quo is the most powerful gravity there is out there, and it just pulls you to the normal and the safe. And if you can break that gravitational pull a little bit, and integrative functional medicine physicians, they want to break free from that, and they've done it in their small world in their own practice. And I would say most of them have broken free in their small practice, but they can't get beyond that, right? They can't break away enough to pull the rest of medicine with them. They can't break away enough to pull their 5 friends with them. At Forum Health, we have the power as an organization to break that gravitational pull of the status quo. And that's what we're looking to do as an organization. And I really think that's why, again, we're starting to accelerate. We're really seeing some great stories where we worked pretty hard to try and find some doctors that were good fits for us. And now our phone's starting to ring with doctors raising their hands saying, I'm a good fit for you guys. Can you talk to me? And the answer is absolutely. And it just really is this power of a network.
That's wonderful. This has been so enlightening, and I want to make sure we're honoring everybody's time and everybody watching. I know it's lunchtime in many different time zones. If you have any other questions, feel free to post them, send them to me privately. I will be putting this replay up in the studio time section that is public viewing. For all of our lessons, we're learning all about public speaking, all the tools that doctors and healthcare professionals can use to make their creative endeavors in their careers. And I want to personally thank Phil, Adam, and Dr. Shilpa for your time and helping us learn all about Forum Health today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really
Thank
exciting
you.
to talk about something we're also passionate about. And we know, Lara, you are as well.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for being anti-gravity.
Yes, me.
Bye.
Bye.
Love it. Time to fly. All right.